The company of angels sprinted silently across the bridge, their footsteps preternaturally. Look at all the errors we found. Hey everyone, how's it going? Doug here, and we are back with Chapter 9 of Archangel. In the last chapter, linked down below if you didn't see it, we left the city of Zezerat with the angels and Uriel and Shandra en route to a village to liberate it from some demons and free some angels and humans that are supposedly being held captive. On the way, we also saw some pretty cool vampires, which, if you didn't catch it, I already said there was a link. We saw some pretty cool vampires. The rest of the journey went without incident. It was only midday when Uriel spotted the town ahead of them, which meant that the group was making better time than they thought. The forest they had been using for cover ended long before the town, but at least bordered a road that led up to it. This close to their destination, the angels decided that stealth was no longer their primary concern. The road, a 2-lane path of cracked pavement and resilient weeds, cut a straight line through the small town and connected to a bridge that crossed a wide river. The river thundered past, the only source of water that Uriel had seen above ground. A quick glance told Uriel that the water was sickly, as black as tar. The noise of the river made Uriel thirsty, but no amount of desperation would push him to drink the dark liquid. He did not even try to fathom what the source of the black water was. The angels moved silently, skirting their way towards the bridge and congregating underneath it, out of sight of any demon that might be looking their way. The beasts were not technically nocturnal, but most were not active before the afternoon. Despite their gaunt appearance, they were lazy, slothful creatures. When everyone was under the bridge, Raphael launched into the plan one final time. "We will cross the bridge and split into 2 groups on the other side," Raphael explained. Uriel was only half listening to his brother. He remembered the plan and instead became lost in his own thoughts. Fariel and his group will make their way through the northern half of the town, while myself, Uriel, and the rest will sleep through the southern. Fariel, your area is more industrial. Most buildings will be factories and businesses, though there are some homes that are likely occupied by demons. The southern part of the town is almost entirely residential. Raphael's voice faded as Uriel turned his gaze towards the town. Even during the early months of the war, before the black clouds began to obscure his vision, Uriel would watch the humans. In the midst of all their pain, the Archangel would witness the most incredible of acts. A father would sacrifice himself for his family, or a complete stranger would hold back a demon while others escaped. Children would still play together, despite the horrors going on all around them. The sound of their laughter would reach Uriel, far above them. "Be systematic, be thorough. We will meet at the far end of the town in the town center before we liberate the asylum. Do not let a single demon survive." Raphael's voice was muffled underneath Uriel's thoughts. He remembered that one day the laughter stopped. There was no more sacrifice, no more love. There was only hate and anguish. The only sounds that reached heaven were those of agony and suffering. Then, the black clouds filled the sky. After that, no more sounds reached Uriel's ears. "Uriel!" The younger Archangel snapped out of his thoughts. "Brother, are you ready?" All eyes were on Uriel. He felt as if he had missed his name more than once. "Yes," he said, nodding at all those around him. "Let's begin." Half the angels moved back up the slope of the riverbank towards the bridge, while the others chose to scale its concrete side. The company of angels sprinted silently across the bridge, their footsteps preternaturally quiet. Some vaulted over the hoods of rusted cars, keeping pace with those who ran unobstructed. Shandra stayed beside Uriel, not wanting to get lost in the throng of angels. The angels of Sanctuary were serious, but still shot each other excited looks and smiles at the fight to come. They did not so much as glance at the Cambion or the new Archangel in their midst. The angels did not stop at the end of the bridge, but instead split into 2 streams of silent warriors. Each group knew where they were headed and whom they were following. They moved like a well-oiled machine, one that had every intention of leaving death and destruction in its wake. Uriel and Shandra followed Raphael and the angels under his command. They reached the first branching street of houses, and with a quick signal from Raphael, 4 angels, including the clairvoyant Rachiel, broke from their party and moved down the street. The rest of Raphael's group continued on, the process repeating itself at the next road and the one after that. Finally, at the last row of houses, it was only Uriel, Shandra, and Raphael. With a nod from his brother, Uriel led the trio down the street. He gave a quick glance back to Shandra, impressed with how deftly she kept pace with the angels the whole time. Uriel took the first house they came to, letting Shandra and Raphael move past him. He let his senses reach out as he moved, but faltered a little as he ran. So much evil was in this small town that the Archangel could not pinpoint how many demons were in the house before him. Uriel slowed before the door, not happy with a plan of rushing in blindly. Raphael had no such qualms. The other Archangel had both his pistols drawn, now fitted with suppressors. He planted his foot hard against the door in front of him, then leveled his twin firearms as he walked inside. Out of the corner of his eye, Uriel saw Shandra approach a house that had no door in its frame. She knocked an arrow and pulled back on the string, keeping her weapon ready as she cautiously entered the house. Uriel went to try his door with the same caution the half-demon had displayed, but it would not budge. It was not locked, just so warped from time and the elements that it dug into the ground. Realizing that stealth would not be his ally here, Uriel took a few steps back and then drove his shoulder into the wooden door with his entire weight behind him. The Archangel stumbled into the house as the rotted frame easily gave way, drawing 2 daggers in the process. A pair of demons huddled on the floor over a bloodied corpse. Uriel could not discern what the bloody mound was, but it appeared so enticing to the pair of beasts that they had not even left the entrance of the house before tearing into it. The Archangel wasted no time before launching into action. He flung one of his blades at the farthest demon. The dagger found its place in the creature's black eye, snuffing its life out without a sound. The closest demon managed a short and guttural snarl before Uriel brought his other dagger across its throat. The wound answered with a spray of blood, the demon's life plastering the walls before its eyes. Uriel heard movement from the next room and moved quickly to retrieve his blade from the eye of his first kill. Silently, he glided over to the doorway that separated the rooms. "What are you?" another demon began in its foul tongue. The beast entered the hallway as it spoke, nearly running into Uriel. Before it could finish, Uriel plunged a dagger into its heart. The beast managed to let out a small, dog-like whimper before collapsing to the ground. When Uriel heard a growl from the other room, he knew he was wrong to assume that the demon was alone. But this was only the first house he had come to, and already the angel had encountered 4 demons. He could not deny the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The Archangel stepped over the corpse of his most recent kill and entered the kitchen. An island counter separated him and the 4th demon, its surface stained a reddish-brown with dried blood. Without a thought, the Archangel sent both of his daggers hurtling towards the monster. The demon dove to the side to avoid the attack, just barely able to do so. Its long limbs made the creature clumsy as it clambered back to its feet. Without missing a beat, Uriel reached both hands behind him and brought forth another 2 daggers, sending one after the other at the infernal creature. The first blade missed its mark, but the second embedded itself in the demon's bony gray shoulder. The beast howled in pain as its long fingers scratched and pulled at the blade. Uriel took the opportunity to close the gap between the two. Ignoring its threatening claws, Uriel planted his heel into the demon's stomach, doubling it over. The Archangel followed by grabbing the beast's jaw in both hands and ripping it wide apart, past its natural limit. A loud crack told him that he had severed the creature's jaw, but the Archangel gave an extra tug, pulling its head back farther than its body should have allowed. The next cracking sound came from the beast's spine. Uriel took a moment to collect his daggers and then dashed up the stairs of the house to make sure no demons were left inside. Satisfied, he returned to the street to see a demon rushing out of the house that Shandra had entered. He reached behind him for a dagger, but the beast stumbled and dropped to a knee before the angel could throw it. The demon's eyes were wide, as if surprised. Its skin began to crack and flake, dust and smoke rising from its gray flesh. In a breath, the demon's body began to burn and collapse until it was reduced to nothing but a pile of ash. Lying in that pile of ash was one of Chandra's spelled arrows. The Archangel looked past where the demon had been and saw the Cambion in the doorway of the house, bow in hand. She smirked and threw Uriel a wink before joining him in the middle of the street. A sharp crash pulled both their eyes to the house Raphael had entered. Uriel glanced up in time to see a demon fly through the second-story window of the house. In the dull light of the world, the demon looked abnormal, even for one of its own kind. It was not until the creature crashed to the ground that Uriel noticed his brother had ridden the demon to the ground, his knees digging into its chest. The older Archangel rolled off the demon, which, while stunned, was still very much alive. Raphael was sure to correct that with a quick shot to its canine-like head. Subtle, Shandra did not bother hiding her sarcasm with Uriel. He could not help but agree. His brother was loud and reckless. He would no doubt draw unwanted attention. Before he could voice his concern, though, another demon emerged from a 4th house, one they had not cleared yet. Uriel acted on instinct alone to send a dagger flying towards the beast's bony chest. At the same time, Shandra let one of her arrows fly, its crucifix tip finding its mark in the demon's throat. "I think my blade got there first," Uriel said, making an attempt at humor. Shandra stopped mid-stride and stared at him, mouth hanging open. "Hold on." The corners of her lips curled up. "Was that a joke? There may be hope for you yet, choir boy." Uriel did not chance a retort. He ran over to the demon and retrieved his dagger. Fully armed again, he proceeded into the house that the demon had emerged from. He heard Shandra jogging behind him to retrieve her arrow before moving to another house. The Archangel only just crossed the threshold of the home as a set of long, clawed fingers swept at him. Uriel tried to dodge, but his momentum betrayed him. The demonic hand raked at his bare arms. It stung, but the wound was shallow. As the creature went to attack again, this time with its other arm, Uriel was ready for it. The angel caught the gray arm below the wrist and twisted it. The demon's body, stressed to the point of breaking, turned around against its will. The creature stood over a head taller than Uriel, so the Archangel kicked the back of its leg, dropping it to its knees. Releasing the demon's arm, the angel moved with haste, stepping forward and wrapping his hands around its gaunt head. With a jerk, the angel snapped the demon's neck and its body went limp. Uriel sensed more than saw another attacker to his right, barely recognizing the glint of steel that warned him of a blade aimed for his throat. Rolling the limp corpse that was still in his hands, Uriel caught another demon's sword with its comrade's body. Using his entire body weight, the angel shoved the dead demon at his attacker, and all three, dead and alive, fell to the floor. Before the demon could recover, the Archangel reached for the back of his belt, drew a dagger, and plunged it into the beast's skull. A quick scan of the bungalow revealed no more enemies, which meant Uriel was back on the road a mere moments after leaving it. He continued leapfrogging the houses with his brother and Shandra, each single-handedly clearing building after building. They were not quick, but steady and efficient, and merciless. Demon after demon fell to their blades, arrows, and guns. After what must have been the dozenth house he had cleansed, Uriel saw his brother standing in the middle of the road, staring down a street that connected to their own. Shandra had yet to join him, so the younger Archangel walked over to his brother. "What are we waiting for?" Uriel inquired. His blood was pumping loudly through his veins. He had been kept in heaven for too long while his brothers and sisters were being slaughtered. Now that he had the chance to finally take his vengeance, to make up for the time he had missed, Uriel did not want to slow down. "We will wait here until the others arrive, as we planned," the older Archangel explained. "Do not let your bloodlust cloud your judgment, brother. This world is more dangerous than you know." He was just as eager to fight as Uriel, but he did not hide the hint of annoyance in his voice. Clearly, Uriel had not been listening to his brother as much as he should have. Still, Uriel did not appreciate the tone he received, especially considering how reckless Raphael had been acting. He shook the resentment off as quickly as it had come, though, and instead took a moment to heal his wounds. A soft yellow light emanated from the angel's right hand as he touched it to his chest. The heavenly magic pulsed through his entire body with each beat of his heart, sealing every cut and fading each bruise. If it had been anything more serious, he would have had to turn to his brother for assistance. Where Uriel's talent was destruction, Raphael's was his healing. There was no more accomplished healer in all of heaven's ranks. "It is good to have you here, Uriel," Raphael said, changing his tone. Both archangels knew that conflict was the last thing they needed. The two angels locked eyes, Uriel's dark brown orbs and Raphael's pale gray ones, but could not help but share a smile. "Should I come back later?" Shandra smirked as she came up beside the pair. Uriel found himself smiling at the Cambion while silently scorning himself for not noticing her approach. Letting his guard down could prove to be a fatal mistake. Shandra smiled back at him but did not hold his gaze. She looked past their differences more easily than he had. Despite the malice he and the other angels had shown her, she had stuck with Uriel in a fight that was not rightfully hers. And, though Uriel was hesitant to admit it, he was more comfortable next to her than any of his own kind right now. Raphael called their attention to the street that intersected their own and the four figures making their way towards them. They were moving at a painfully slow pace, but it soon became apparent why. As they approached, Uriel saw that one of them, a massive angel, was being helped along by a much smaller one. The former was barely able to put weight on one leg. The two archangels and Shandra ran over to meet the four, who gave them a quick nod. Or rather, gave Raphael a quick nod. The small figure who was helping the giant angel along gave Uriel a small smile, but one he would have missed if he had blinked. He recognized the female angel as Ariel, an angel he had fought beside many times in his life. None of the four bothered to look at Shandra, though Ariel's eyes threatened to glance in the half-demon's direction. "Lay him down," Raphael said hurriedly. How would you say that?
What?
Like, hurried, but with L-Y. Hurriedly. Okay. "Lay him down," Raphael said hurriedly. It sounds so bad. "What happened?" "Azael was attacked by 4 of those bastards," Ariel explained as she lowered the much larger angel to the ground. "He can barely walk." Raphael knelt in the dirt next to Azael and pressed both of his hands together over the angel's wounded body. His hands immediately began to glow, a brighter yellow than Uriel's did when he had healed himself. The archangel placed his glowing hands on Azael's thigh, which was over half the size of Uriel's chest. Ligaments and muscles grew back over exposed bone, followed by bright pink flesh that was scarred where it met the old tissue. "Thank you, Raphael," the giant of an angel said quietly. "Do not thank me yet," Raphael grunted as he stood. "I did the best I could, but any more and we would be swarming with demons." Uriel was glad that his brother was able to show some sort of restraint, but part of him wondered if Raphael was capable of doing anything more than what he had just done. With the clouds blocking their connection to heaven, Uriel would not be surprised if that was the extent of Raphael's current abilities. "You can walk, my friend," Raphael continued, "but that's about it. Stay behind us and stay safe until we have exterminated the demons in this town." An obvious disappointment dimmed Azael's eyes. The hulking angel was meant for combat, not sitting and nursing his wounds, especially while his fellow angels charged headfirst into danger. "We do not have time to wait," Uriel interrupted the angel, sulking. "Azael, watch our backs as we finish off these last houses." The wounded angel nodded, happy to be given some sort of role. Now a group of 7, they continued down the street that the archangels and Shandra had been working through. Only a handful of homes remained, but the ones that did were larger than before and sat farther apart. Raphael signaled for Uriel and Shandra to enter the first house they came to and sent Uriel in with them. He took the other angels to the next house, while Azael lagged behind as he kept his eyes open for threats. As the archangel and his companions approached the door, Uriel gave them, even Shandra, a quick nod that she was ready. Uriel carefully twisted the doorknob and pushed the door inward as slowly as he could. It groaned as it opened, but not loud enough to mask the sound of movement inside. Uriel reached behind him, under his cloak, and grabbed 2 daggers with one hand. His free hand shoved the door the rest of the way open, which slammed it into the wall inside. The archangel rolled inside the house. He heard something large, a spear most likely, soar over him before he came up from his somersault. Raphael's healing might have drawn more attention than they initially thought. With only a glance at the demons in the house, Uriel's arm came around and released both daggers at the one that had thrown the weapon at him. One blade embedded itself in the creature's bicep, while the other found its mark just above its protruding sternum. The beast gargled as it fell, dark, frothy blood foaming from its mouth and the wound in its throat. Before he could draw another dagger, a second demon charged at him from a room on his right. Uriel braced himself, but the monster suddenly lurched to the side, an arrow shaft protruding from its temple. The archangel followed the arrow's path backwards to find Shandra aiming another arrow through the shattered window in the front of the house. She gave him a small smile before loosing her other arrow. This time her arrow, one of the black-fletched mundane ones that she had been given in Sanctuary, did not deliver a lethal blow. It only grazed the flank of one of the 2 demons stumbling into the same room as the angel. A figure leapt past Uriel, bringing a clawed hand at the wounded demon's throat. Chandra's arrow had stunned it, if only for just a second. It was more than enough time for Uriel to finish the job. Gore erupted from the demon's neck as its lifeblood spilled onto the dark, moldy wooden floor. Uriel did not hesitate after her first kill. She brought another similarly wicked hand forward and plunged it deep into the second demon's chest. The demon, eyes wide with shock, lashed out at the female angel. The beast held 2 large swords in his hands, weapons he brought down again and again on Uriel's bare arm. Each blade struck her skin but never broke it. The demon's attacks began to slow as confusion and sorrow filled its ghastly eyes. Uriel withdrew her hand from the dead thing's chest, pulling its large bluish heart with her. Uriel tossed the heart at Uriel's feet. The archangel did not know whether to be repulsed or impressed. "A gift," she said with a grin. "The other angels might not trust you, but I do." Uriel turned and looked through the empty window frame at Shandra. "Both of you." With that, Uriel stepped towards Uriel and gripped him in a hug that made his ribs sore. Uriel embraced her, happy to know that she was on their side. He was worried when she had not approached him in Sanctuary, but it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Uriel was one of the first to descend during the war. "I think I'll go check for any demons upstairs," Shandra said loud enough for the pair to hear her. "You 2 look like you could use some time together." The half-demon shuffled past them as the 2 angels released one another. Uriel caught Chandra's gaze as she moved to the stairs. "That was some nice shooting, Shandra." "Thanks." The Cambion smiled earnestly at the angel. "That was some nice heart extraction." Uriel stepped back and examined his friend. Her fingers were no longer sharp, pointed claws, but delicate and light. Uriel had the talent of stone skin. She was able to harden any part of her flesh with nothing more than a thought, which allowed her to easily deflect the demon's blade. Uriel did not know that she had learned to make her hands into weapons, though. That was a new trick. "It is good to know that we have some friends among those who clearly despise us," Uriel said, holding Uriel at arm's reach. Because of her talent, the angel did not have to wear armor like the others. Instead, she sported a top that left her arms and shoulders exposed. One of her sides was exposed too, though that looked to be the fall of a demon. Her pants were a dark brown like his own, but not as thick. They don't despise you, Uriel, Ariel corrected quietly, her gaze turning up the stairs that the Cambion had ascended. Most don't trust you yet. It's been a long 10 years for us, then suddenly you appear out of nowhere. But they despise her. She's a half-demon. Are you really surprised? The angel looked back at Uriel, brushing her short blonde hair over her ear. I trust you, Uriel. I always have. So I trust her too. Just don't expect the same from the others. The Archangel knew it to be true. He also knew that some of the others would likely never be convinced to trust Shandra, but some could, as Uriel could see in his friend before him. Uriel did not know that Shandra had heard their short exchange. There were no demons upstairs, so the Cambion let the two angels say what they needed to say to one another. It did not hurt the Cambion to know that the others despised her. It hurt to know that she was the cause of their distrust towards Uriel. But, Shandra thought, at least there is one more angel who doesn't want her dead. That makes 4. And so marks the end of Chapter 9. This was a shorter one than what we've been diving into recently, but it was action-packed, so it also read a lot more quickly than some of the previous chapters. The angels have just gotten into this town, and they are, as Raphael said, systematically going through and exterminating the demons that they find. And we got introduced to a new character, or we got introduced to a couple, but the most important one was Uriel. And originally, I'm ashamed to say, this chapter was going to be the introduction into some cringy love triangle between Uriel and Ariel and Shandra. And I'm really, really happy that it's not anymore. I think that was just sort of a trope or a cliche that I thought or felt that I needed to have in there. And then based on some feedback that I got from beta readers and others who saw the first draft, it was removed, and thankfully so. In fact, all the quote-unquote romance in the book was taken out, so it was more focused on developing relationships between people and focusing on the actual mission or missions themselves. So we were saved from a love triangle. That's probably disappointing to some. That's probably a big sigh of relief to others. Next week in Chapter 10, we're going to be finishing up in this town and all the fights that take place in it, then moving on to the asylum. So make sure you're subscribed by hitting the button down below so that you don't miss out on that. And if you like Chapter 9, or if you liked any of the chapters of Archangel, go ahead and hit that like button. Both liking and subscribing really help the channel out. And other than that, we'll see you next time.